Be silent before the sovereign Lord, for the day of the Lord is near. The Lord has prepared a sacrifice. He has consecrated those he has invited.
So, this is a message. Read it for me one more time, please.
Be silent before the sovereign Lord, for the day of the Lord is near. The Lord has prepared a sacrifice. He has consecrated those he has invited.
Yeah. So, again, it's foretelling of the sacrifice being Jesus, but it also tells them be silent before the Lord. Also, it talks about the wonderfulness about it all is restoration. He says, hey, there'll be restoration, but it's the people had lost respect for the Lord. They said they love him, but they only spoke it, they never acted it out.
So who's invited?
Who's the invited ones?
Those he has invited.
Those he has invited are
Us.
yes, the Gentiles, his chosen people, and those are the ones he has invited. But unfortunately, this book is just destruction, and then maybe you'll learn your lesson.
Right, I get to enter, you read that, and then you read it.
So, that's the book of Zephaniah. Anything you've noticed? Any questions?
What's that? And all of those clad in foreign clothes.
Again, for them back then, clothing was very specific. Like the Israelites were to dress in a certain way, not like the rest of the nations around them. But you had the people who are elite, rich people, who are bringing these fashions and things and selling it to the people, selling people these ideas and bringing it in. So Zephaniah first condemns the priests. He says, hey, listen, you're supposed to be the example for the people, and they're following after you. And so you say you love the Lord, but your heart is elsewhere. Now then the rich people, you guys are bringing these things that are foreign, and they're following after these things. It's like you keep corrupting my people. So it says, yes, everyone is responsible, each for their actions, but everyone is playing a part, and it's especially the people at the top.
Can I ask you something? And I'm not being racist in any way. Do you not think what they're telling us the new is about bringing Muslims into your country? Because it's a different God, more or less. It's a different religion. It's a different way of living. It's a different culture. It's a different dress. It's everything different to what God has taught us. And that sometimes frightens me because I'm like, see when you're reading it and it's telling you about Israel, and it's telling you they were not mixed with certain lands because it was a different religion and they would corrupt them, and that's how he fell out with Jerusalem as well, because they were bringing different people in. They were copying their laws or mixing their laws with their own laws.
Yeah.
And this is what's happening in the new. It's happening again.
Yeah, that could be, but there's another side of Britain is it's now recognized as an atheist country. It's like even lost its Christian values.
Yes, we know, but that's what I'm saying.
That's the
because
reason why.
the reason why is because we're getting all different religions and it's corrupting everybody else, so nobody knows what's what.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's corrupting it. But it's already had that in the Bible, in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
And it's happened.
The thing is, the people were supposed to be a light and example, but they failed to do that and ended up being corrupted. I suppose that's another danger with being a light and being an example.
Well, it's telling you here the new, that's what I'm saying to you, because it said, I will punish the officials and the kings and sons, because that's who's bringing it all through. And they're telling us it's all right. You don't need to bother about your Christian values because we're not going anywhere. Because we need to help these Muslims, that we don't want to offend the Muslims. It's all right to offend God, but don't offend Muslims. That's what's happening.
But we're not allowed to offend them.
That's what's happening in this country, and that's what it's telling you there.
Yeah.
So the officials and the governments and all that going on. That's good, because see what's I see when the officials and government and all that getting killed first.
I'd be.
Sorry, Jesus.
Now, I would be very careful because for that moment of time, even then, like, you have to take that into context. Israel was supposed to be very protective of their borders. They were not to even marry foreign women or any of this, right? But we're looking at the Old Testament, but when we move to the New Testament, you know, it's a different period of grace. It's a different dispensation. And so things are handled a little bit different. Now, yes, you can still get outside influences, but you see, the amazing thing is, what Jesus demonstrated is, he says, we are supposed to be the type of people that we can go into a dark place and we are the ones who are infectious. But unfortunately, we go to these dark places and they're the ones that infect us. And so, the sad thing about it is we are supposed to stand in what we believe. Unfortunately, that's not what's happening.
We're getting pulled down constantly, because in your schools and everywhere else, even if you go to a hospital and somebody will say to you, will you pray over me?
Yeah.
Will you help me? They're not allowed to do it.
Mm.
Because they can get their books, because there's an example with you in the bus. The Muslim person seen her with the Bible and it upset her.
Yeah.
I don't upset me.
No,
Or
no,
the
you.
woman. I tell the bus driver, like,
She went to the bus driver to get her out.
Yeah.
what I say to the bus driver, so what you tell me to read it, because if you tell me so read it, I'm getting out of the bus. But he said, no, I just have to acknowledge the complaint report against you. Is that acknowledged?
Well, don't get me, and please try to understand what I'm trying to say here is, of course, we need to stand for our Christian values and stand for what we believe and what we believe is right. But I know it can be hard at times, but to look also on the other spectrum, on how, like, we may not see it all the time, but even Muslims are just almost as persecuted in a different way. And most of the times, the ones we see is the radical Islamists who are on television.
You've seen it in the streets, and you've seen it all the time in the streets right now.
Yeah.
People, and they're looking down. And I am not racist in any way.
Mm-hmm.
I do get angry that you see someone and they've got all their stuff on and they're looking down on you because you're nothing to them. You have to walk out their road because they are more precious to you. And your government's allowing this. And I think in America, some places in America are doing the same. The only thing I agree with Russia is where he's turned around and says, this is my country. If you want to preach your Muslim faith, you can preach it, but do not tell us what we have to do. They're doing it in England now in certain places. They're wanting this Sharia law.
Yeah.
And they're demanding that. And see, once we start doing that, that's it. We need to get down on our knees, and I mean really down on our knees and knock it up.
Here they need to abide by our rules.
But that's not happening. We really need to get down on our knees and knock it up for days, because it's going to get worse.
So here, number one, I know what you're saying, I understand, and your answer is very right in the sense that we do need to go on our knees and pray. But also, there's the religious part where we need to go down on our knees, we need to pray, we need to see God break through all of this darkness, and we need to be the light and example. Then there's a second part of it, is the political aspect of it. It's our country, but for instance, you know London, you know 90% of the skyscrapers are owned by Arab nations. The only person who has more land in England than the Arabs is the Queen. And so I know you're saying this, but on the other side of the spectrum politically, it's the people who are fighting own us. in the strangest way, money-wise, because of fuel and all these things. It almost, yes, I don't, not in a bad, it's just like, they're able to change laws because they have a lot of money here.
There's a place in Glasgow, and it's the richest city in Glasgow, and it's all owned by Muslims. And yet, they've come over here, a lot of them have come over, leaving poverty and the rest of it, and yet, it's the richest street in Glasgow. It's in, what do you call it?
Paisley Road West.
No. Up at, it's mostly all coloured people, it's there.
One side.
Now, there's two ways to
You
look
show
at this
things like-
with the Muslim community, because you can fight and kind of be angry, which fair enough, that with the way they're changing and trying to fit the laws to better suit them
It's
than
not
the
their
people.
faults, because they're
Is
getting
it?
away with it.
Yes, they're getting away with it. But the other side is say, if we are able to influence the community here, how much of an impact it could have, right? If revival took place within the community here, and you see a conversion in faith and revelation of who Jesus Christ is, then that would have a major reaction.
That's not going to happen. You know what's going to happen first? It's going to be racism first, before that's going to
It's
happen.
going to end
There's a lot
up
of
that Britain's
people-
going to be a Muslim country. rather than-
It's going to be racist, it's going to be like parts of England where you've got them, they're going to fight against them, and it's going to be tit for
I
tat.
think if we had as much passion for Christ as they do for their beliefs, then I think we would do.
There's
I
that
mean, what
side.
they've got, they've
No, I said if we had as much passion for Christ as they have, as the amount of passion that they hold for their beliefs, then we would be able to,
Yeah.
overtake them. Aye.
like as you say, shine,
Yeah.
you know, because I think the now we're getting kind of bullied a bit, and it's time for us to stand up and account to basically.
Yeah.
Well, I get reported in my work, I'm going to tell you. 2 months ago, this person was covering their security guard, right? And I was praying, I was doing a bit of homework, and I was praying about it, right?
Yeah.
And this person, it was coloured, and I never gave it a thought. I think I told you about it. And he just knelt down in front of me and started praying to Allah. And I went, well, I did. I went, so I sat in the couch then. He was praying to Allah, and I'm thinking, the Bible at the same time. And I'm like, I don't think I'm trying to get loud, right? And I'm like, oh, what am I doing here? Because that's just tit for tat. But 2 days later, I came in and my boss came in and she went, Elizabeth, is it you who reads the Bible? And I went, aye, everybody knows I read the Bible. It was a complaint about you, and a complaint about me. And I knew what the complaint was.
Yeah.
And I went, well, is it all right for somebody to kneel right down in front of me because they've seen my Bible? I says, and I know exactly what he was doing, because he's seen my Bible, I'd left it on the couch. I was doing a bit of homework and I went, flip my phone, I went, I'll put that there on my next break. I says, and I know exactly what he's doing. She went, I mean, you've got to watch what you're doing. I was when I got caught, I had to watch what I was doing.
You should have been put up too, to
You never
respect
get
your
put up,
religion.
that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
They don't want to offend them.
well, you tell them, you told, I would, I mean, I'd say to the boss and say, well, I'm offended that he's done
I
that.
did, she says, just watch what I'm doing. She went, I almost don't you for reading your Bible. I went, no, I know you're not. I went, I know you're not, I said, it's my time.
I think if, as Christians, like Marianne mentioned, having that passion for what we believe and being careful not to play that tit for tat game, but being absolutely genuine. This morning we were doing major prophets, and we're looking at Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were in a place where they changed their names to follow other foreign gods, to the point where they had to bow down to a man. And because they were passionate about what they believed, they said, hey, it's okay. And they didn't come off offensive and say, hey, you're you, and they said, this is what I believe, and if you feel like we are breaking the law or anything, do what is best, put us in prison, throw us in the fire, you know, but this is what we believe. And because of that kind of faith, they ended up turning almost the whole nation of Babylon to a following Yahweh for a while. But it shows the example of if three people can have that kind of influence, not because they were complacent, because in this case they were the only three people who worshipped God in a nation. But they understood that my passion, my faith is what's going to influence them. Not to say you're wrong. Because Daniel was fed. They said, we'll give you the meat and the wine and all these wonderful things. And he says, I can't eat that stuff. I respect you, king, but I can't eat it because you've prayed to other idols for it. And I serve a different God. And so with all respect, I'm there. I'm not telling you you're wrong. I'm not telling you you got issues. I'm just saying this is the God I believe and I serve in and I believe is right, so I'm here. If you're offended, do what you wish. And it's with that, I think it's with that kind of approach sometimes, and I know it can be confusing at times, but it's saying, hey, this is my belief. If you're going to fire me, fire me. If you're going to take me out of the bus, kick me out of the bus.
He's approached them. But this is happening when you're not approaching anybody, you're just, what do you say about that?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a bit intimidating, I
I
don't know.
think that video was John was saying if I had stood up and been crazy about that, I would get thrown off the bus.
Aye.
But the point is, I didn't just say, well, you know, if you're going to tell me to stop doing that, I'll leave the bus. And the guy said, no, it's okay, you can just continue. And this lady would do the bus. And I just sat in the front of the bus. And it was almost like, you know, she didn't get what she wanted. And, you know, so she basically, and it wasn't a case of me going a bit crazy, it was a case of me saying,
Well, I didn't go crazy with that guy either.
Um,
You know, I didn't go crazy with him either. I read my Bible in front of him.
Here, you know, it says the meek shall inherit
Yeah.
the earth. When you get the literal interpretation of that, it says that the people who have, it talks about like, because the language has been changed so often over time, when you really understand what that means, it says the people who have their swords and are sharpened, but decide to keep them packed away, and say, you know what, I could use this and cut you down, but I'm going to choose not to. I'm going to choose. It says, you know you have the strength. You know when you get on that knee, I could annoy you and get at you. But I'm going to choose. And I know it can be, there's so many different situations. You learn to say, you know what, this is my word, and do what you wish. I could punch you right now, but I'm not going to. I could.
I didn't.
You know, and I understand, and the way we're living right now, you have to be so careful, but there's only being careful to a certain point, as long as it doesn't start to distort your faith. It seems like people can criticize Christianity, but you can't talk about the positives of it, you know? You're like, anything that is opposite of Christianity is okay. Anything that's for it, that's a no-go. And it's learning to be, how is it? It's learning to stand and say what you want, but I'll just let you know that this is where I am as well.
I think it gives us more determination, really.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
The thing as well, though, you don't know who's watching you
Aye.
day to day, and if you go crazy when you get confronted, people are like, you know, that's like Christianity, or is it money?
Yeah.
Is that other you just...
I get angry with people I know when they go like, this is a Christian country. And you're like,
Yeah, I get it.
Church or chapel.
And you have to be, and like when you say, you have to be so careful, because it was out of that attitude you get the crusades where like, we're going to go kill everyone if you don't want to believe it. And so you just, it's very, and you know, sorry, all right, yeah, okay, sorry, Marion, you guys can head out. We're just having like a discussion. Hey, Kira.
Hi!
I
Hey.
fall on faith? Do you know what my opinion is?
Go for it.
I think every Christian in England and Scotland should all get together and fight against it all.
Yeah, totally.
I believe that Glasgow should have every Christian church, and I was talking to that SNP about it. That
God wants us to rise up, so
we should get together and have a massive